Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. This show was recorded on March 20th, 2023. I'm Asbed Bedrossian and I'm here with Hovik Manucharyan. Here are the major topics we'll touch on today. We're going to discuss various parts of Pashinyan's marathon press conference this past Tuesday. Then we'll discuss, what there is to discuss with a very belligerent Azerbaijan. And Foreign Minister Mirzoyan is in Moscow today. We'll talk about that visit. Finally, since the mayor of Yerevan resigned just before the weekend, we'll talk about that. Today, we are joined by Tevan Poghosyan, who is the president of the International Center for Human Development. Mr. Poghosyan was an MP in the National Assembly between 2012 and 2017 from the Heritage Party. From 1997 to 1999, he served as the Nagorno-Karabakh Public Affairs Office Director in Washington, D.C. Hello and welcome, Tevan. Happy to have you back.
Hi, Tevan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
All right, let's begin, Tevan. This week, the most reported event was the 4.5-hour press conference by Pashinyan. He covered a range of topics from the 44-day war to the potential for the so-called peace treaty to Armenia's relations with Russia and more. But I wanted to ask you if you have followed it and what you think was the main message or set of messages that was given at the conference, and why was the conference held now? Because over the last 2-3 years, he has been very shy about appearing in media, unlike before the war. But now I think this is the second press conference this year. Why is Pashinyan, there must be a purpose, and what is that purpose and what is that messaging that he wants to convey?
I think, first of all, he didn't come up with any new messages. The only, let's say, new things from his previous behavior and statements was about that media first time followed much more on corruption points also, which exist. And maybe even it's also a very interesting development when people are not trusting anymore on his national gender issues, and that's why questions also turn. By that, Pashinyan has reached his point that he's trying also to think that the Karabakh is not the only point on Armenian agenda, or even worse, to take out Karabakh issue out of the Armenian political agenda. I think the only his message on the traditional level was, it's not me, it's everyone around me is the cause of the problems, but not me. This is his point. About the ideas that government is going to give up on Karabakh, we discussed many times and nothing new there. And as I've been many times saying that even he would be trying to get rid of Karabakh. Aliyev is not simply interested on, let's get me Karabakh and it's enough. Aliyev is wishing to get Armenia the whole. That's why that topic is continued. But the other things has been army is a problem, previous government's problem, international community's problem. No any leader knows what would happen in 1 month's time and so. But kind of trying to say that very soon maybe the war would be there. Maybe we need to go to another capitulation agreement signature, and it's not because of my policy, but it's because of the others.
That was the main message that I got. He clearly tried to say that, another war is imminent. Azerbaijan is preparing for war. Azerbaijan is preparing to massacre Armenians in Artsakh. And at the same time, we are committed to peace. And just, I don't know how those messages work together. For instance, on the issue of Artsakh, despite the security of Artsakh being on his government's agenda and on, which was also in his pre-election platform, he basically squarely said that Armenia is no longer responsible for the security of Artsakh. It's now the responsibility of Russia. That's one of the points. And the other point, of course, was that in the last 30 years, it was never, the international community never accepted Artsakh as part of anything but Azerbaijan, which is also debatable And as you're saying, it seems like Artsakh, Tevan, as you're saying, that Pashinyan seems to be done with Artsakh, but has he also predetermined its fate, simply saying that it's now the responsibility of Russia? If Russia is not taking that responsibility, then what's going to happen to Artsakh?
This is this main point. So like, again, I'm saying you both have the background of American democracy, perfectly. Whenever the policy started, there are always some issues which are permanent on the political agenda. It's American domination, it's, I don't know, abortion issues or so. There are permanent issues which are from each. Artsakh, from the first day of independence, has been a main issue of Armenian political agenda and has been determining all leadership in the Republic of Armenia, starting with the movement in 1988. Now, Pashinyan is wishing to get rid of the Artsakh issues, that in Armenian political agenda, Artsakh wouldn't be determining position. That's why he's clearly kind of getting rid of it. Russian responsibility, I think a spokesman of Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs clearly give that statement, like, who give you right to talk or living responsibility on third countries of your issues?
Yes. And to that exact quote let me just read the quote from Maria Zakharova. She said that they would leave it on the conscience of Armenian leadership its attempts to make third countries responsible for the fate of Nagorno-Karabakh. So to preemptively ask the question, does Russia then is basically saying that if you want Artsakh, then you have to fight for it?
Kind of a logic of this, like Artsakh not anymore is my headache, is not anymore interesting to us, guys, and I don't have any cause in this. Like all the problems is not mine. It's everyone's, but not mine. And I'm not the one who created this situation. The same behavior was the logic of corruption. The same behavior was on the logic of all the other issues. If you will not mention the last names, but only using the wording on answering the questions, you will notice very similar discussions, like if the journalist would ask Erdogan about corruption in his team, like it would be the same sentences that Erdogan would say. That we have a presumption of innocence for our guys, and yes, it's our guys. That's all. The same behavior on many other issues. I think just maybe the ratings of international community or institutions that there is a decline in democracy, in Armenian democracy, has been the one of the main cause why he's starting to speak and doing the similar logic of press conference. But I would say that it has also negative consequences. So like journalist who has been a month ago on his press conference asking the questions now has been much more prepared to ask difficult questions, but the cost of this was clearly hackers' attacks on their agencies. One of them is Arabot. As a stronger question was from journalists, as more heat got that news agency from the fake army or hackers.
We will definitely talk about the democracy issues and corruption. I think that's important since you also brought it up. But to close the topic of Artsakh, is there a path for Artsakh for its own self-determination that Artsakh can take without Armenia? Or if not, then what is the alternative for the Armenian nation? And also, while we're exploring that, what's your view of the current Artsakh authorities and also the processes to amend the constitution? Because they're also having a crisis there where, if the president is incapacitated or somehow, resigns, then there may be a constitutional crisis. That sort of adds to the list of problems in Artsakh. What is your thought about that as well?
Let's dive with the situation in Artsakh. Artsakh is fighting for all Armenians now. 120,000 people is taking the fight for the sake of name, image, pride, I don't know, whatever you will call, of 10 million Armenians in the world. I think we have a passive understanding also from a lot of people, Armenians in the world, that Artsakh issue is not issue of 120,000 people, but it's issue of 10 million people. I think last week or the weeks ago, there was a future Armenian event in Armenia. And the discussions of the participants has been like group of 200 people, but the selection was the very interesting and with the specifically programmed and kind of a voluntary participation, but trying to create a mini Armenians in the world. Let's give a clear answer that 97% of the participants considering that Artsakh issue is the issue of 10 million Armenians. I found that today's very active Armenian political people need to pick up on this, and this is the only path for Artsakh. Because Artsakh is now fighting, it's in an open war with Azerbaijan, even if sometimes we're not used to saying that our Armenia also in a war. But we're saying that there's no shootings, that's when there's no war. But in Artsakh, the shooting is every day, blockade is every day, a cut of electricity every day. No gas situation every day. That fight is for all Armenians in the world to feel that they are Armenians, that they have their identity and they really representing nation and nothing, and not just simply a humans who has been sleeping, eating, and sleeping again. The only way is for us to have this kind of a national resistance, revival, revoke again, and develop the proper resistance to take our fight. Maybe it would be much longer way, maybe it will be much difficult way, but this is the only. People in Armenia also, by the old sociological surveys, about 97% are not accepting that Karabakh or Artsakh should be within Azerbaijan. But unfortunately, we don't have a proper leadership or elite leadership here trying to pick on these issues. And the ruling government is a done deal. I've been repeating from the day November 10, 2020. The government, the loser government will get new losses, nothing else. And that's why until they are in a power, Armenia would be losing and losing.
Yes. Let's talk about a little bit more about the corruption. I think it's important to mention that journalists from Aravot basically, mentioned that on the day of the press conference, they were going to release a sort of an expose on the corruption within the civil contract party. And all of the members, almost like in the top echelon of civil contract, have gotten rich. They basically released the trailer for that documentary, and their YouTube channel got hacked by unknown hackers. And some Aravot journalists, or basically the Aravot editorial staff, is not excluding the possibility that this was done by the same government they were writing about.
I don't have even doubt that this has been orchestrated from their side, because there is no any other interesting side or interested side in this issue. So like neither US government nor Russia nor European ones, no one would be interested in this internal issue. It's not about like we will release information about corruption in other neighboring countries or so on. That's why it's everything internal. And it's not only Aravut, but as you know, CivilNet, HEDC, and many others has been asking an open questions, bringing up real facts, numbers, deals, information, and so on. And it's definitely, again, I'm saying that first time I can notice that Pashinyan has been speaking fully like Erdogan when has been asked questions about corruption in his team. His behavior has been similar to that.
Yeah, there was also criticism in one of the reports, and he basically dismissed this as if his dismissal can have the same weight as research. And some would say that in fact Western agencies, those the same ones like funded by Western powers have been treating Armenia with kid gloves when it comes to corruption. So even though, Armenia's global corruption rating or global freedom ratings have decreased, it is despite the fact that we all know that the foreign policy interests of the West want Pashinyan to stay in power, and some would say they are predisposed or inclined to let Pashinyan's government pass. But even
until there is no national government in Armenia with the national issues, the West interest is there, and I think West, I would say that Russia, all the countries in the world are now okay with him because they will be dealing with the loser. Now, if any country, whenever it's coming to Armenia, they say that what to do to bring or push my interests ahead, how to deal on this region. And definitely, they've been looking for the very weak government, and they find in the face of Pashinyan that it's much easier to deal. He's giving a promise, or they're pushing for something like this, and that's why actually we have that situation. See, like when during the 44-day of military action time, no government has been in a support of this government. Mm-hmm. Now, after loss, they all in a support of this government. Because even if you're taking the speeches of this government or request of this government at the time, they've been saying that the road closed, no one is selling arms to us, and so on. But when it's coming to the issue of need for changes, everyone is no, we are in a full support, let them stay, and so on. Which meaning that it's a clear satisfaction of by the all governments in the world to have a loser government in Armenia because they decide to compromise or found the ways of their interest push in the region through or by cost of Armenia.
As far as negotiations go with Azerbaijan, Pashinyan repeated several times that the current times of war are very turbulent. He talked about the difficulties in negotiating with Azerbaijan and its dishonest approach, and warned of the alarming likelihood of Azerbaijani attacks on Artsakh and Armenia. I thought it was interesting that he put himself in a very logical spot, Tevan. He said he's negotiating with a dishonest partner, and also said that a peace treaty, as he calls it, would not guarantee peace or even non-aggression. My question is, why would he continue calling this a quote-unquote peace treaty or his agenda an agenda of peace if he himself is telling us that none of the work's outcome can guarantee peace or even non-aggression? What's the point of calling it and selling it to Armenia?
It's easy to sell. The nation is wishing to have a peace. That's a call like this, but it's not the national priority or interest. Population here is much easily living with the logic that they would wake up early morning, eat something, go to do some work, get some small money, again, eat, come to sleep, nothing else. Don't bother me with the security issues. Don't bother me with the national agenda. Don't bother me with that we need to defend the country. Don't bother me with anything else. I like to have a Mercedes. I like to have something else, but don't bother me with anything which is coming to the really patriotic responsibility of the citizens.
Tevan, to me, it sounded like not just don't bother me with this information, but it's also actively stoking fears of war. And at the same time saying, if there is another war, then we're not prepared. So it seems like there's a cultivation of fear going on among people. And if that is the case, then, so I have to say, even among some of my friends who are very patriotic and would go and fight any day, they're saying we're going to go and fight and die because of Pashinyan. But do you feel that maybe one of the reasons for this press conference was to actively stoke those fears, and because of those fears, try to sell what he's selling now?
So, we have one very important issue here, which each of us has some small surrounding or round of our friends, circle of our friends. Even if you're looking to the logic of the social networks, like Facebook is giving you 5,000 friends, and then it's closing. Even within that small circle, if we're having a similar opinion, it's just another 5,000, nothing else. But there's about 2.5 million. And in general traditional point of view, he's really working on that kind of a logic that, okay, we have about 100,000 very patriotic guys, but all the others are preferring to say, don't bother me with the many other issues. They are much more interested in understandable titles of newses and not about the serious discussions on national issue. Right, John? And this is the point. And when Asbed has been asking his question, there was very interesting 2 points. He repeated that Pashinyan has been saying Aliyev is the bad guy. He's not kind of a serious. He's not keeping his promises. What was the week of his interview? Like March 2023? Open up his all interviews of 44 days during 44 in 2020. How many times to international media has been saying that whenever Armenia has been ready for some compromise, Azerbaijan next minute ask for more. The similar approach, 3 years, he has been telling about this. 3 years, Aliyev has been making a statement. 3 years, everyone is listening to this. And still, we not believe in his words and thinking that, okay, America would not allow Armenia to be destroyed. Russia would not allow Armenia to be destroyed. EU will not allow Armenia to be destroyed by Azerbaijan or something. No, guys, Aliyev is seriously, systematically, properly calculating his actions and going ahead. It's Armenians who not understanding that if 3 years ago was the similar situations, why we need to trust that without Aliyev change, we need to keep up the same government in Armenia and thinking that there'll be another result. I know from the whole kind of a series, doesn't mean negotiation, political sense, thinking as the old problems that has been ever created by one thinking is not possible to resolve on the same level of thinking. That's why I'm saying that the loser government will bring only a new loss, be it in Armenia, be it in Georgia, or be it in other places, until we'll not understand that the problems in us and not in Azerbaijan, not in America, not in Russia, not in EU, not in China, not in other places.
This is why they should have resigned after the 44-day war.
Definitely. And this is the only way of the point, that to have a political responsibility. Guys, I created a problem. I will not be able to resolve it. I need to bring in new thinking, but for that, I need to leave, give a space.
Right. But even on the shallow level of him wanting his Mercedes and his comfort, luxury, etc., it's not going to be possible as long as there's no peace. So why would he sign a document that's not going to achieve that?
I don't know. I see, like, starting from the first day, whenever he has been saying about peace agenda, I've been permanently repeating peace is not possible one-sided. Thousands of experts has been repeating about this. I've been saying that you cannot sign a peace with the guy who anytime, whenever you getting ready or agreeing to his point, and according to your own statements, he is asking for more. Then how you would define the peace would be only when Azerbaijan would get rid of all Armenians in Artsakh and in Armenia, when there wouldn't be existing Armenian statelessness. This is the understanding of peace in Aliyev's mind. Now, if you know that peace is talking about peace, at least require two sides, and one side is not going to that. How many times you would be believing in one-sided Armenian approach? This is the point, and Pashinyan is just perfectly understand that peace is nice words, which Armenians like, and which is allowing him to keep his power. That's all. That's why he would be keep repeating with this. Even if till one day someone would ask that, they would decide to give him a Nobel Prize for peace.
Tevan, let's talk a little bit about our relations with Russia. During the press conference, Pashinyan's line was that and I think his writers must have had a lot of fun with this, Armenia is not leaving the CSTO. The CSTO is leaving Armenia.
Yeah, come on,
I
guys.
laughed, and the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman Maria Zakharova laughed it off also. And, earlier in the week, Pashinyan also called Putin to express concern about Azerbaijan's aggressive moves. Our take here is that after very seriously damaging relations with Russia, Pashinyan and his team are finding that their expectations are not being met by the West, the EU and the US, from the perspective of holding Azerbaijan accountable for weaseling out of just about every point of all agreements they've co-signed with us since 2020. Azerbaijan has not returned Armenian POWs. They have not stayed on the November 2020 line of contact. They've invaded Armenia proper. They murder Armenian civilians every week. Today is the 99th day of the Artsakh blockade, which was bindingly ruled by The Hague to be illegal and must be removed. And yet there's almost no effort to make Azerbaijan do anything except demand more. If anything, the US has said that no sanctions are being considered against Azerbaijan, and the EU has said through multiple diplomats that they cannot, quote unquote, save Armenia from Azeri aggression. So I guess we're deducing that Pashinyan is now trying to mend its relations with Moscow, because otherwise, if and when Azerbaijan attacks, and in the absence of any real investment in the Armenian armed forces, there's no alternative to Russians.
I think he's perfectly understanding what's going on at the other issues. What would allow him to keep his power? Now, it's a kind of a very interesting, and let's put the blame on Russians. But whenever would be the point, I would say that, guys, remember a week ago, I told that it's Russia's problem. Now, don't amaze that next day it would be also putting a blame on the EU and US. I don't know. Today, Mirzoyan was in Moscow with Lavrov discussing, and Pashinyan has been calling and speaking with Blinken. Let's see how many days would go with the opening up blockade or something like this. I think whatever they're doing, they perfectly understand that world will not go with the sanction. Hague, it's more than a month already. The Hague court paper is already announced, but no activities. Yes, the world will be busy with the Azerbaijani gas and so on. But Lavrov has been kind of putting today, I think, cynically agreeing with what Pashinyan said, but in open way saying that if Armenians are not caring about Karabakh, why should we caring about it?
Yeah.
In fact, let's cover the Lavrov statement separately, Tevan.
Before everything, one just very short, and these discussions about CSTO. Whenever people talking about this, it's meaning that they are not know the procedures of the organizations, because Armenia is an equal member of CSTO and all decisions taken by consensus. If Armenia is saying no decisions in CSTO is accepted. Imagine the room where 6 guys sitting and, for example, the 5 saying that we wish to leave Armenia. If Armenia would say no, CSTO wouldn't be able to leave Armenia from the oligarchy. It's similar to the NATO. If the Turkey will say no, there's no mechanism to kick out Turkey from NATO. That's why it's totally different. And as a nice point to say that it's not us who need to be blamed, but it's about CSTO and as a blaming point that exists. If you're not able to work with organizations which are member, you are, as the problem is not in organization, the problem in your policy.
Right. Let's talk about Azerbaijan's belligerence. While Pashinyan is busy selling his agenda of peace, Aliyev was busy clarifying his further designs. Aliyev continued with explicit claims on what he calls West Zangezur, which is basically Syunik and parts of Gegarkunik. Actually, they've also used many terms before, like West Azerbaijan, which is Armenia, all of Armenia. They have also used this Zangezur Gyokhcha Republic, which includes Sevan. I mean, they just add more terms to and more claims every day. what's also important is that while Armenia is saying one thing, which is like there must be an international format in negotiations about Artsakh and the rights and security of the people, the Armenian sort of so-called population of Artsakh, which is basically relinquishing of the issue of status. But Aliyev is clearly saying like there won't be any international format. They have even threatened to classify every single Armenian who has served in the defense forces of Artsakh as terrorists, as an escalation. This is a major new escalation. Aliyev also said yesterday from, I believe it was from Talish, he basically said that for Armenia to live peacefully on the territory of its 29,000 square kilometers, there is one condition, and that condition is that Armenia must accept Azerbaijan's conditions. It's a recursive definition, and basically, at least I understood it as...
and it's been true in practice, every time there's demands met, he has more demands.
Essentially, like it's a carte blanche, it's a capitulation. And this was actually seemed to be like a direct response to Pashinyan's question, which he posed on September 14, when he said that he wants to sign any document which would guarantee that Armenians could live in peace on this 29,800 square kilometers. Aliyev also left out that 800. So there's also reports that there's accumulation of Azerbaijani forces on the borders. Hovik Manucharyan, head of the Armenian Parliament's Human Rights Committee, said that is happening in Artsakh, in Gelarkunik, and Tavush. For whatever reason, the Armenian army is denying that. But it's worrying, and we have no reason to not trust Hovik Manucharyan. And lastly, just today, more worrying reports. Azerbaijani press carried reports of a shootout near the border with Nerkin-Hand. I don't know why Armenians would need to shoot Azerbaijan from Nerkin-Hand specifically, because that region is basically completely almost surrounded. They also ran a ridiculous editorial saying that Armenia is starting a new war in Hakin-Az, one of the main propaganda outlets. So I said all this to basically ask you, Tevan, a very serious question. How close are we to war? Is this all, can we say that all this is just language for internal consumption, or is there a real threat here? Even some Iranian analysts are saying that Azerbaijan may take advantage of the Nowruz holiday to start something.
I don't know what we're understanding when we're saying war. If it's only active military activities, then yes, every second, every moment it would start. Also, the spring is here. The weather would be much okay for using things, and the winter pass. But if we're understanding the war as a logical, psychological existence and real situation, has been the Armenian blockade, Armenian, not even Artsakh, left from Turkey or from Azerbaijan?
Yes.
Blockade is an act of war. Has been shootings, yes. Has been using threats for something. Is not the military or is not the war activity. Economic war is there, information war is there, psychological war is there, from time to time shootings is there. That's why let's consider that our war is not finished. All other issues over which we need to live with our psychological and thinking is that how to not allow that active military activities start until we are not ready to give the proper answer or fire back. Let's get prepared for the proper fire back, and then whatever would be starting is starting, because I think whatever we have been saying, we're forgetting one thing. Aliyev one day could say 29,000, another time said that, oh, okay, maybe 27 would be enough. Another time to say maybe even 20 would be enough, and another day to say 12 is even too more. But he said one time his dream, he said that I need to be in Yerevan, which meaning that the Yerevan is the final target to make it Azerbaijan. Now, why we not trusting these guys? To understanding that he's never would be speaking about peace, and he will be always like that. Now, is it okay time to use Nowruz because of the all Muslims are need to stop and not to fight these days? For the not very religious Azerbaijan, yes. Until Iran would be there, Turkey would say that, oh, you're respecting it. The whole Arab world will be saying we are in a novus. For Aliyev is the best time. And it's not only best time for him. It's also best time for Israel to utilize during that time its interest against Iran. Why are we thinking that all regional issues is finished and in this world only Azerbaijan living in Armenia? No, the war could start because of the clash of interest of many, many actors. And I think out of this point, yes, every second there to think this. Aliyev and Azerbaijan is in rush because they perfectly understanding that today's situation, upcoming elections in Turkey, what would be there, how the situation would be developing, how the Russia-Ukrainian development would be growing, and that's why he's trying to get as much as he can from this point. Next year, it would be the year of elections in Russia or in many other countries, like as I know, also in US and something. And many countries would be much more maybe interesting to not allowing a lot of adventures from many countries because that could really affect their election processes. That's why I think Aliyev is calculated properly. Yeah, for him, is 23 is a time when he would be trying to get his best. He promised that by the end of the year, if peace deal is not signed, the one which is not going to sign by himself, anytime when Armenia accepted some compromise or some step back, he's been asking for more. Why he need to sign the peace deal? But he's saying that if they are not signing peace deal, then we will have with the Zangezur corridor and everything by the force. And that's why I think he is just planning and step by step is going very kind of a planned targeting his ideas. The only maybe biggest obstacles for having already reached a lot of things was the Karabakh resilience and resistance for the 100 days not to give up.
Right.
And this is because on the Armenian side, he's not seeing, on the Armenian, at least government side, he's not seeing any resistance. Say like, who demanded that Ruben Vartanyan be changed? Aliyev. Who pushed and put the pressure to Karabakh leadership to fire Ruben Vartanyan? Nikol Pashinyan. How this is happening? Today's Armenian government is serving to the interest of our enemies. As a result, we can, as a fact, only using like this. We have the open demand to change Ruben Vartanyan is changed. We have an open demand to give up on something. We're seeing the process of giving up on that. It's very nice to say that 29,800,000 is a red line for us. Seriously, guys, then when Aliyev is speaking in Talish about this, where is the statement?
Right. Tevan, there was another important development that happened today. So technically we'd cover it next week, but it's fresh on our minds. So let's talk about it. It has to do with the relationship with Russia. Today, Arat Mirzoyan made an official visit to Moscow to meet his counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. If this was not an ad hoc meeting, then it seems that it was kept under wraps pretty well because they only announced it last week. If we remember, the last time Mirzoyan was scheduled to visit Moscow was on December 22 for a trilateral meeting that included Azerbaijan as well, which Mirzoyan boycotted. Overall, despite the specific points, Lavrov's tone and the speech today did not indicate that much tension. Maybe it was the seasoned diplomat in him, but Lavrov did say that this meeting was very comprehensive. The two foreign ministers even signed a package. I don't know the specifics of that, but can you tell us a little bit what was the purpose of the meetings today? What do you think was the summary that you got from watching it?
So I think just the traditional way Russia is trying to go and to do something and to understand the situation. Maybe that's why it's happened that today they went there and speak. I would not say that Lavrov's cynical expression of many issues is not a problematic for us, if this is what the Armenian ruling party is thinking. because he has been starting to cite Almaty Declaration, which they've been against. They've been starting to say that, okay, guys, you need some rights like Armenian language learning possibilities.
Yeah, Russian language schools.
No, in Artsakh.
Oh, in Artsakh, yes. Yeah.
If this is whatever you would be asking for the rights of Artsakh people, it's okay. But I think main issues has been maybe we would understand in a 1 week time what happened. But cynicism was there with the same statements, very hard. The same as you said, that re-signing these big two books of the old protocols between Armenia and Russia, which has been existing during these 30 years. He said that, yes, we need to sign it. It's a kind of a nice idea, but it's not something as a marriage agreement. Trying to say that, okay, we have so many agreements, but it doesn't mean that we need to treat it as like a family members' obligations. And on all other issues, second, that there was some questions to Mirzoyan, and before as Mirzoyan started to answer, Lavrov said that, oh, as I noticed, it's not only your journalist really well prepared, but it seems like our journalists also done their homework.
Right.
Saying that this is very important issues. And on the, for example, part of why some Russians with the Armenian origin guys are not allowed to visit Armenia, Mirzoyan kind of asked for not commenting that issue, which is really not good for the Minister of Foreign Affairs not be able to answer on such issues.
Yeah.
So specifically about my Armenians. So like, it has been not only about the Russians who are not allowed, but it's also about some, I do believe, guys with the passports of Armenian Republic cities.
Yeah. Another interesting point before that, there were two more interesting points, but one interesting point was that Arat Mirzoyan seemed to say that they have not rejected the CSTO offer to send monitors. And Sergei Lavrov seemed to reconfirm that and said that, yes, it's still a possibility and we need to work. Do you think that was just a diplomatic way to sugarcoat this and go? Is Russia basically trying to twist Armenia's arm into, getting
I do believe that there've been a very serious and hard discussion about EU monitors, because Lavrov's statement, on which Mirzoyan didn't give any proper answer during the press conference, was that the whole West is trying to go with the diplomatic
racketeering,
racketeering of all the stuff that we done. And point of that, officially on the paper, because see, like in my previous point about CSTO, there are procedural points. On the procedural ones, when they say that Armenia is not rejecting to this, but it's not accepting either. And if you're not accepting, decision is not taken, which meaning that yes, Armenia maybe would be okay with this if the whole paper would be okay. In the whole paper, Armenia put the demand on the political assessment against Azerbaijan, over which other countries will not go. And sorry, but I think Aliyev one day said that I have much more allies in CSTO than Armenia.
Right.
This is another lesson for us, guys. If you exist there and you are a member of that organization, understand how that organization is worked and how your interest should be preserved. You have been thinking about why the Armenia is rejecting appointing the positions there. Now, on all that issues, if we're going, there is no final veto on that, but there's no also acceptance. And in reality, as a result, is Armenia who is losing. Neither Kazakhstan, nor Kyrgyzstan, not Uzbekistan, nor Russia, not Belarus is not losing anything on the Armenian not acceptance besides of Armenia. That's all.
Yeah. Tevan, the other major point that I want to talk about from this press conference between Lavrov and Mirzoyan was essentially they asked a question about the status of Artsakh or Karabakh. And Lavrov said, and how do you see autonomy of Artsakh working? And he brought two specific examples. He brought the example of Donbass, Russians in Donbass, and Serbians in Kosovo as examples of the type of autonomy that Armenians of Karabakh could enjoy, that Armenians of Artsakh could enjoy. What do you think about those two examples? What was he trying to say with those? And do you think that those are even starting points for us?
No, first of all, I think his major point wasn't being on the examples, but on the next statement. He said that, agreement is agreements. But if the sides who accepted agreements are not respecting that agreements, results or the consequences is not okay. Donbass and everything has been agreed, but because Ukraine didn't follow them, they are living in a war. Now, Serbia and Kosovo have something to agree on, blah, blah, blah. But if the Kosovo will not be following on this, who knows what will be next day? They could ban military activities, something like this. And that's why he's trying to, its examples has been specifically chosen to show that the guys who are accepting agreements and not respecting that agreements, finally getting totally different results, and the work could be there. That's why he's been using like that kind of an example. This is my reading about that. Guys are because we're not believing that Azerbaijan would be following on any agreement, be it even respecting the rights of learning Armenian in the schools of Artsakh. If Artsakh would be within Azerbaijan, who knows what will be the end of that. As Lavrov just specifically tried to say that if you don't trust on the fulfillment of anything, I don't know what you're doing. That's why I'm saying that his many answers has been very, very cynical on the way to saying that the Armenian government's policy today is not about anything good, and it would be finally bringing to another confrontations and escalations.
So let me move us to our final topic. We only have a couple of minutes on this one. It is about the mayoral politics in Yerevan. As it was widely expected, Tevan, and predicted openly in our media in the past weeks, Hratia Sarkisyan, the civil contract mayor of Yerevan since December 2021, resigned. He said he will continue to support his party, the Civil Contract Party. And since Hovik Manucharyan's ouster, it has been public knowledge that Pashinyan wants to install Tigran Avinyan as the mayor of Yerevan. A couple of questions for you. First of all, how do you assess Hratia Sarkisyan's tenure as mayor of Yerevan for 15 months? And what is your view of these shuffles in Yerevan City Hall?
I don't really know which day he accepted or swore as a mayor. And I have heard about his resignment as a Friday evening news, which is not even created an informational turmoil or something like this. And I don't even remember what's changed in Yerevan during this whole time. Because on the PR side, if you would ask a lot of people who was the mayor of Yerevan during that, seems like 1 year now or something longer, I don't know how many people would know his name. And for me, nothing is changing in Yerevan on the logic of the living in comfort or something like this. That's why, sorry, I don't have any assessment on his activities. And in reality, if you're asking me what would change or something like this, there is a very famous logic in mathematics. They're saying that doesn't matter which two you would put the first one or second one, the result is 4. Doesn't mean whom you will put from the civil contract there, the result would be the same.
Let me quickly ask Hovik, what do you think of Hratia Sarkisyan's tenure and these shuffles?
I don't know. They say he had a good sense of humor, but that was the only thing I heard on news about his resignation. Frankly, he's just been towing the party line on many issues, and he's been there even in these for many of these 15 months. He's been there as a placeholder. He's been there as a physical bookmark for Tigran Avinyan. I don't know. Maybe he's the best human bookmark in the world, but otherwise, I don't know what else to think about him.
Tevan, can you talk a little bit about the political forces vying for power in Yerevan? And frankly, how important are the Yerevan elections on the national scene in Armenia?
I like the Yerevan is traditionally a half of the residents of Armenia. That's why from the resource side, from the community side, is very important. I think one of the most important things, which you asking, like how many forces, I would prefer to live in a free country where if there is any political force exist and they have their vision about the local government and Yerevan, let them run. But I would also like to live in a country when people would be assessed by the programs and not personalities and the team. Now, how many political parties today would run for this? I don't know, but I would be trying to assess the program and the team if it's giving me feeling that whatever they promise, they are able to bring into the life. The pro kind of is like they would be coming again with all many political issues. The problems would be PR, who is running media, whom would be pushing. If you even looking not Yerevan, but even small communities with the local government recent elections, remember how many opposition guys who has been running and winning next day has been jailed. I don't know what would be the situation here.
Yeah.
But sorry, I don't have anything positive to present for this moment. And I hope that finally and in reality, opposition would be able to go with the strong challengers and trying to really turn political elections in Yerevan into very important assessment of democratic situation here.
Well, from the perspective of parliamentary opposition, as far as I know, both Hayastan and Badivunem alliances are not fielding a candidate for Yerevan's mayor.
Traditionally, in Armenian reality, let's wait till the last day of registration.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
you, as of today, someone could say that I will not do it, but next day they could really do it.
Also, they have not fielded any candidates, but they have also said that we do not exclude that we will participate. They've been very careful. But for instance, there have been media reports that everyone seems to have an interest in participating in Yerevan. And I think that's logical because the municipal elections in Yerevan are a little bit more than just regular municipal elections. They're half of the country, as Tevan said.
Hovik, are you planning to run?
I do not exclude that possibility.
All right, we're going to wrap up our topics here. I'd like to ask each of you, Tevan and Hovik, if there's been something on your mind this past week that you would like to talk about, just like 30 to 60 seconds. Hovik, I'll pick on you first.
Yeah, normally this is a long show, so we would skip the rants, but I really have something to say to those. A lot of Armenians have this savior complex that they want to come and save Armenia, but many also have this victim complex or the complex to be saved. And many Armenians hope that this or that international organization can help save them. And the latest episode in that show was a former Secretary of NATO, former Secretary General of NATO, was in Armenia, Rasmussen, and he said some things that some Armenians liked. And later it became known that he was here on a paid visit. Rasmussen visited the Belligerent corridor, criticized Azerbaijan, blah, blah, blah. But then, we found out that this is a lobbying operation. And what's interesting is that the Armenian government, normally governments lobby the external world to change external opinions about Armenia. And in this case, it seems like the only opinion that the Armenian government is targeting here is of Armenian citizens about NATO. And, people seem to have forgotten that during the 44-day war, Stoltenberg, then the Secretary General of NATO, said that, we're not going to let go of our relationship with Turkey to come and help Armenia or something to that effect. But also, if you had forgotten about that, just this week, the same time that Rasmussen was in Armenia, an actual serving NATO official was in Baku. Mustafa Oghuz, he's the Secretary General of Landcom, basically the land forces of NATO, a very high position. And he was there, and surprisingly, he didn't mention anything about the Berdzor or Lachin corridor. He could have said Lachin corridor, he didn't even say that. He prayed for the so-called martyrs of Azerbaijan, and he talked about Azerbaijan's border issues with Armenia, but that was about it. So, I think that people should put these complexes aside and think about interests of organizations. And in this case, is NATO going to give up its relationship with Turkey to come and help Armenia?
Okay, thank you. Tevan, what's on your mind?
My mind is always Artsakh. If you would ask me what to speak and said, I would say that I will make a call to all Armenians in the world. Again, let's follow as many times proves that we consider Artsakh issue is not only issue of people of Artsakh, but it's also the issue of our 10 millions. We need to wake up and stand from our brothers and sisters, because if we will have again victory in Artsakh, it would be the whole victory for all Armenians. I think we need it. 100 days of blockade. We need to be ready for the repeating 1992 scenario of living blockade of at that time Artsakh Republic by our force and power, and to get to the same situation when the road is controlled by the Armenian militaries or Artsakh Defense Army. We need to understand that 100-day fight of our brothers and sisters was much more for us and not only for them. And this should be serving for us as a unification, serving for us as a point over which is our national obligation, and serving for us as a good sign of getting to our national unity for the sake of existence of Armenian state.
All right, let's leave it there for today. That's all the time we have. Thank you, Tevan. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tevan.
Thank you for the invitation.
That's our show this week. We hope you found it informative. Now go find us on social media and follow us. We'll talk to you next week.